This is another history of the relationship between Japan and Korea. What is the relationship between your country and its neighbor? Are they close? Most of the time, neighboring countries are not very close, although they maintain an important relationship. Japan and Korea also have such a relationship. In the previous issue, I explained the relationship between Japan and Korea up to the Middle Ages. In this issue, I will explain the Korean invasion caused by Hideyoshi Toyotomi. In 1590, it was Hideyoshi Toyotomi who ended a period of turmoil in Japan that lasted more than 100 years. Even before he pacified Japan, he had the idea of conquering the Ming dynasty in China. The truth is still unknown as to why he intended to conquer the Ming dynasty. There are a number of theories, such as his desire for conquest or the loss of his job as a samurai because of the loss of wars, but none has been officially recognized as a Japanese theory. In 1587, Yoshishige Song, a daimyo of Tsushima near Joseon, came to Hideyoshi to ask if he would be satisfied with tribute and hostages from Joseon, instead of conquering Joseon as he had announced the previous year. Hideyoshi, who had just finished the conquest of Kyushu, refused to listen to his plea, saying that his next target was Okinawa and Joseon. He then said that he would conquer Joseon if the king of Joseon did not come to see me. Hideyoshi then appointed Song as the negotiator with Joseon. This order by Hideyoshi was very troubling to the Tsushima Song clan, which depended on Joseon for its economy and was in a position of being subordinate to Joseon. Yoshishige Song prepared a fake Hideyoshi's envoy. The fake Hideyoshi's envoy met the king of Joseon and told him that Hideyoshi had unified Japan and asked him to send a royal envoy from Joseon to congratulate Hideyoshi. This was the Song's intention, to have the king's envoy sent to Japan instead of the king to settle the situation. However, Joseon refused and accused Hideyoshi of being a usurper of the dynasty. Song did not report this event to Hideyoshi, and a year passed. Song was blamed by Hideyoshi for the king of Joseon not coming to Japan, and Song himself went to Joseon to ask the king to send an envoy to congratulate him. The Joseon side had no choice but to send a congratulatory messenger to Hideyoshi. However, a serious misunderstanding arose here. The Joseon side thought that the envoy was a congratulatory messenger and that Joseon and Japan were on equal footing. However, Song and Hideyoshi's entourage told Hideyoshi that they were messengers from Joseon who had come to Japan to convey their submission. Hideyoshi treated them in a rude manner as if he were treating a vassal state, and the envoys from Joseon were outraged by Hideyoshi's rude attitude. Hideyoshi also gave them a letter of state. The contents of the letter stated that Hideyoshi intended to conquer the Ming dynasty and that the territories of Joseon that surrendered first would be relieved. He ordered that Joseon would lead the Japanese forces to the Ming dynasty in case the Japanese forces made a move. If Joseon did not comply with this order, he would conquer Joseon as well. The surprised Joseon envoy hurried back to Joseon and made a report to the king. At that time, there was a political upheaval in Joseon, and the king did not take the envoy's report seriously. They had an unfounded prejudice that Japan was an inferior country and could not possibly attack Joseon. Therefore, they had made no preparations for a Japanese attack. In 1591, Hideyoshi began preparations to enter the Ming dynasty by first attacking Joseon because of the lack of response to his letter of state. The reason why he attacked Joseon first is that at that time, Japan did not have well-developed navigational skills and could not navigate as far as land could be seen. Therefore, they could only go from Joseon to Ming dynasty. In 1592, the organization of an expeditionary force of 300,000 men began. The total Japanese military strength at that time was estimated at 500,000 troops, and this was a large army that would deploy 60% of the total force. The army consisted mainly of daimyo with fiefs in western Japan. It is said that this expedition was intended to reduce the power of daimyo who were not truly under the control of Hideyoshi, but this is not the case. Many of the warlords who went to Joseon were trained by Hideyoshi, such as Kiyomu Saketo, Masanori Fukushima, and Yukinaga Konishi. Ieyasu Tokugawa's forces, the second most powerful after Hideyoshi, did not cross into Joseon. In 1592, in April, Japanese forces crossed into Joseon and attacked Pusan. Japanese samurai, who had experienced a long period of warfare, were skilled in warfare, and Joseon's soldiers were completely outmatched. It is said that all the people in Pusan Castle were slaughtered and left in ruins. The Joseon soldiers defending the area were forced to flee to the north without fighting when they heard of the Japanese attack. In the first place, Joseon had a political system in which civilian officials were exalted and military officers were considerably lower in rank than them. A civil official who fled from Pusan informed the royal court of the Japanese invasion, but there were no soldiers to be dispatched, and only 60 generals went south to confront the Japanese. Japanese troops arrived one after another and moved northward. The generals of the Joseon army who were guarding various locations fled without a fight, and within 3 weeks of the Japanese landing, the king decided to abandon Hansong and flee to Pyongyang. On April 29, 1592, King Shonjo left Hansong in heavy rain with several hundred of his subjects. After the king left, the people of Joseon rushed into the royal palace, looted, and set fire to the place. King Shonjo's party encountered villagers in every village they went, but they did not greet the king, who had abandoned his people to flee, with courtesy. On May 2nd, the Japanese forces felled Hansong, the capital of Joseon, within 21 days of landing. The people of Joseon gave up on their king, and many of them began to cooperate with the Japanese forces. This was also an issue of the status system in Joseon, and the oppressed people probably greeted the Japanese forces in search of their own liberation. From Hansong, the Japanese forces moved further north toward Pyongyang, where the king was located. The Joseon army, which consisted mainly of volunteer militia, was completely outnumbered by the Japanese and suffered a series of defeats. As the Japanese forces closed in on Pyongyang, the king fled further, moving to the border area with Ming dynasty. The king then requested Ming troops to come to his aid. On June 14, Japanese troops also occupied Pyongyang. At the king's request, Ming troops went to rescue Joseon. This was not for the defense of Joseon, but to keep the battlefield within Joseon. On July 16, the first battle between 5,000 Ming troops and Japanese troops took place, which ended in a disastrous defeat for the Ming forces. Following the entry of the Ming forces into the battle, the Japanese generals decided to limit their advance to Pyongyang and fortify the defense of Hansong. Li Rusong, a famous Ming general, led 40,000 soldiers to Hansong. Here, he fought a decisive battle with 40,000 Japanese troops, and the Japanese forces were victorious. Li Rusong was almost killed, but was able to escape to Pyongyang. Li Rusong lost his will to fight in this battle and wanted to make peace with the Japanese. Li Rusong was so angry at the lack of food for the Ming army that he made the leaders of the Joseon court get down on their knees in the garden and greatly condemned them. The chaos caused a great shortage of food in Joseon, but the Joseon imperial court provided food for the Ming army, even at the expense of the people's food. In 1593, in March, the Japanese army, suffering from a shortage of food after its food stores were burned by Ming troops, agreed to peace. Li Rusong set up a false Ming envoy and told Hideyoshi that the Ming envoy had come to apologize to him. This peace was made between Japan and Ming dynasty, excluding Joseon. Hideyoshi's conditions for the peace were that a Ming princess be given in marriage to the emperor, that the southern half of Joseon become Japanese territory, and that a Joseon prince be taken hostage in Japan. Warlord Yukinaga Konishi, who was negotiating with the Ming, knew that the Ming would not accept these conditions. Therefore, he told the Ming envoys that they could forge a national document and return to Ming China. Li Rusong also told the Ming emperor that Hideyoshi would surrender, and both Li Rusong of Ming and Genisi of Japan, who were in charge of the peace process, made false reports to each other's sovereigns. The situation could not have gone better, and the lie was easily exposed. In 1596, a messenger from the Ming Emperor arrived. Hideyoshi was furious to learn that the terms of the peace he had proposed had not been accepted at all. He then decided to go to war for a second time. In the next video, I will explain the Second Korean Invasion. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our channel and click the like button.